Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Sports Show here on the SportsTalkLine Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. I am your host, Joshua Griffith, and today on the show, I am honored to be joined by Mark Panis, managing partner of Intermarket Media, sports firm advisor. So, chairing of the Center for Sports Communication and Media Board, former Whitecaps CEO, former AS Roma CEO, former Chief Marketing Officer of the New York Knicks, and much more. So Mark recently finished a 4-part series, An Expert's Guide to Running a Soccer Club. For all of the geeks of the business side of sports like myself, this was a fantastic read. And if you missed it, make sure to check it out right down at the bottom. And while you're down there, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that big blue join button for lots of extra perks that we're going to have for you here shortly. So I chatted with Mark for about 20 minutes, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did talking to him. So without further ado, Mark Panis. I have so much I want to talk to you about today. I mean, we chatted a bit here just before we in the green room, and the last time we chatted was the 2020 home opener of the Whitecaps, waiting for the bus to arrive in front of the stadium. So much has happened back since that day in February. Could you talk about what you're doing with Intermarket Media now?
Sure. So Intermarket is really advising owners and potential owners about the valuation of franchises and clubs and what to do in the acquisition process. And then once they've acquired them, how to manage them in a way that helps them avoid a lot of the pitfalls that we see so commonly in sports ownership.
So I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to the business side of sports. I'm sure my fans kind of know that. I talk about it a lot. I really enjoyed your 4-piece part, An Expert's Guide to Running a Soccer Club. So for anyone who hasn't read that yet, could you kind of give us a general rundown of the piece? And then I have some questions about some certain things I'd like to ask.
Sure. So that was the first Intermarket Media print previously way back when I was just out of school. I was a columnist and sports editor for a group called Optimist Publications in Western Mass. So I always loved writing about sports, and I approached Sports Pro Media in November, and we were having some discussions about ways to work together. And what we hit on was I pitched them on putting together. It was titled at the time. The working title was An Operator's Guide to running a pro soccer club. Right before publication, they switched it to expert. I won't fault them for it. It's nice to when someone thinks you in those terms, but that wasn't self-proclaimed. Let me put it that way. And so the 4 parts we really looked at were, properly structuring football operations, properly structuring commercial operations, particularly around sponsorship, properly structuring the relationship with fans, and the use of data. It's the hot button term these days, but I think so many people misapply it. And then the 4th thing was just stakeholder engagement, because you have to deal with other teams who are really your business partners, the league, the local municipalities, and so forth. And so it was great to write a 4-part series for them, and it's been pretty well received. So that's gratifying.
So the second part of your article really kind of hit home for me as, someone who has to use the social media world very much. How important do you think it is for sports teams to build brands across all markets and fan bases? I mean, you saw that when you worked for the Whitecaps, you really made a push to bring them with, Twitter with various handles, different languages and things like that.
Well, today, media consumption is a pull by consumers rather than really a push by sports clubs. Since we're talking sports clubs, by sports clubs or brands, right? And so, there's so much information that's out there and so much content. Fans pull what they want, so you really have to figure out a way to reach them where they're consuming and when they're consuming, and you have to do it with something they find compelling. And so social media has been a tremendous tool for opening direct dialogues with fans. I think one thing that I'm a huge believer in is that sports clubs in particular, their fan base is so passionate. It's so easy to start a dialogue through social media, and I strongly encourage that. The key to understand is that those fans are not your customers when they're on social media. They are the social media platforms customers, right? So, if you have 20,000 fans, 50,000 fans, a million fans on Facebook, and you want to activate them, you have to pay Facebook, you have to pay Twitter, you have to pay Instagram to have a targeted campaigns. And so the goal is, and by the way, what they think, it's a great business model for the social media companies. They say, hey, we have a platform, give us free content. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that it hyper targets people who are really interested in your product. We'll bring them onto our platform where we have them in what we call the login state, right? That's where you know the most about them. Once they're logged in on whatever your business is, whatever your digital platform is, when someone's logged in, that's the most direct relationship with the consumer, but they're not ours, right? We don't own that login relationship. That login relationship is owned by the social media company. And I think that most sports clubs, most organizations find that it's easiest to grow followings, to accumulate followers by just using these platforms. But the key really is to use these direct dialogue tools to pull those fans, identify them. And the great thing about sports fans is we're all of us are fans, we're all hiding in plain sight. We wear our favorite clubs, brands, we just what we do, right? We talk about it, we post about it, we have conversations about it, we read about it, we're spending money on it constantly. So we can find those fans a lot easier than a lot of businesses can identify their customers, just in terms of being quote unquote hiding in plain sight. The key then is to use these direct dialogue social media tools to bring them onto your own platform, where you have them as that direct dialogue is really you and your fan, and they are your customer. And then the dialogue you can have with them is, there are so many tools today that allow you to have a really robust direct dialogue, separate from the social media feeds, that we in the sports industry need to take advantage of that much more robustly than we do right now. And the tools are there. It used to be when I started those many years ago in New York, if you wanted to send a crew out, it was like somebody with a $250,000 shoulder held camera, somebody with a boom mic, an audio person. So audio person, cameraman, producer, someone with a microphone. That's 4 people, and $275,000 US worth of equipment. Today, if it's not an iPhone or an Android phone, someone's using a Canon or a Nikon with an adaptive lens. They're getting ultra HD quality, and it can be edited on a laptop. And so we've seen the emergence of what we call the predator class, right? The producer editor who can actually do all of those things: conduct the interview, film it, take the audio, and go back and edit on a laptop. And then you can push it out very quickly. So by all means, sports organizations should be taking advantage of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, and someone who can't edit his own stuff and has to send it out to a producer still, I should probably get into that predator mode. But so Mark, that's interesting. You brought up your time with the Knicks there. You were the chief marketing officer from 1990 to 2000. Am I correct there?
No, I started in 90. I started doing comms for them in 90 as a pup right out of school. And I did comms, I did commercial ops for them. There were 19 trade unions in the building at the time. So learning to do commercial operations in that environment was a great way to cut my teeth. I did set up a partnership sales group. And then the last 2+ seasons there, I was chief marketing officer for them. So it was a steady role.
Yeah. So, I mean, you said the differences between now and then with how you would go to market an organization, an operation. I mean, what are some of the biggest differences? Is it social media that you're seeing?
There's such an abundance of competition for consumer time, right? Time and dollars, but time really, right? And so you're competing today with, I never look at it when I'm in the front office of a team, managing a team in a league, that other teams in the league are my competition. Yeah, we compete when we play against each other, but that's a very short window of time over the course of an entire year. In fact, it may be 2.5-3 hours twice a year, depending on whether you're playing someone in the playoffs or not, if your league even has playoffs. And so the rest of the time, you're business partners, and you are really competing against the cinema, competing against people going out for dinner and that type of self-directed entertainment, doing stuff outdoors, playing video games, esports, so forth. So there's just such an abundance of opportunity for people, again, as a consumer, to go pull what they want, that just simply didn't exist in the mid 90s relative to what it does today. So that I would say would be the biggest difference. And then you have all the comms platforms and the content. I mean, what I would liken it to is, I was listening to a TV critic a couple months back talk about the way they used to, how their jobs evolved over like the last decade. And they said it used to be that they could watch everything that came out on television. And now they're more like a book critic, where it's impossible to cover everything just on TV. It's impossible to cover everything that comes out on broadcast. You really have to pick your spots on what you're going to focus on. And I think that's indicative of the proliferation of content we're seeing globally right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, you must have had some pretty cool experiences working with the Knicks. I mean, you covered some pretty good times under Pat Riley, obviously, and
Yeah.
and Don Nelson there, trips to the NBA Finals,
Yep.
and then something too with the passing of Kobe Bryant, just fresh over a year away. His first NBA bucket on November 5th, 1996. Were you there? Do you have
I missed I think 5 or 6 games over a decade, so I was definitely there.
Yeah.
Yeah, not memorable, that first game that he had. I mean, he was obviously he was memorable, but in the pantheon of memorable games I saw in that building, that wasn't one of them. But boy, I mean, his career speaks for itself in terms of accomplishment.
So I'm joined by Mark Panis here on the Unnamed Sports Show. Mark, do you have a favorite Kobe Bryant MSG moment then? Because like you said, that wasn't a memorable one, but I know he's had a lot of good ones.
I have I don't have a specific Kobe one. I mean, we become fans. Fandom is forged in big moments, and we just didn't. Lakers playing the Western Conference. We didn't play them in the finals, so we didn't kind of have that type of playoff.
Yeah.
Like if you would ask me about Reggie Miller.
I was going to bring up Indiana too. Okay,
yeah,
we can move on to the most memorable.
Tons of amazing stuff happened in those series, and that's when they used to play, back to back. Like they'd play, noon on Saturday, 3:00 on Sunday, and hand checking was allowed. The game was much more physical than it was today. Pat Riley really brought a different type of basketball to the forefront in the 90s. Running the Knicks and kind of set the tone, and ultimately Jeff Van Gundy picked that up and carried that through successfully to taking the team back to the final. Went to the finals in '94 and then went back in '99.
Are you following the NBA at all? I mean, I kind of see you posting a bit about it. Yeah. From an organizational standpoint, what teams do you think are doing it really well, kind of even in this pandemic world?
That's an interesting question. I think that teams tend to thrive broadly on how well organized and operational the league is,
mm-hmm.
and how centralized kind of the operating standards are at the league level. So that's why if you compare some of the leagues that are in South America or in Europe, where they don't have very strong league offices, a lot of times teams are their own worst enemies in the way they operate. NBA, really well-oiled machine from an operational standpoint, has a great relationship with the union. So a lot of the clubs are doing things very well right now. It's a real partnership between players and management. I like to see what the Celtics are doing. I think they're just broadly impressive. I love their stability on the basketball side. I love the way they've nurtured homegrown talent. I think they're active in the way they cultivate the right reach to their fans. I think they do their sponsorship really well. I can't talk about ticketing in the pandemic because there is none effectively. And so I think they do a good job. Obviously, the Warriors have done a great job getting that new building built, and the run they've had on the court's been also, I think, reflected in the way they've built out the front office. Rick Welts was at the NBA for years, and I mean, he started with the Warriors as a ball boy, like back in the early '70s. So like when I got into the league, he was like 25 or 30 years in. Then he was a young guy, and he's still a fairly young guy, but I mean, he's long in the tooth in terms of NBA experience. And so he was always a great operator at the league level. So he's been able to really make sure that franchise is outstanding. And then always have great affinity for the way the Heat operate as well. I think, I worked with some of the guys who were senior people there, and of course, Mr. Riley is, he sets an amazing standard for any club.
Yeah. So obviously up here in Canada, we have some Raptors fans. What do you make of what Masai Ujri has done with the Raptors organization?
He's done championship level stuff. He's been amazing, right? And look, rolled the dice, brought in kind of the stealth best player at the time, right? I mean, I think it was, in retrospect, it was clear Leonard was kind of peaking at that point. And, circumstances come together. And look, won a title. It was beautiful. So happy for the Raptors. Thought it was great for Toronto, great for Canada, great for the NBA too. And really, really good strategic, GMs and president of the sporting side or sports director, depends on the sport, but really good strategic ones who can provide stability, identity for that side of the organization. That's where you tend to see organizations thrive, and they've done a great job in Toronto.
Yeah, and so speaking of sporting directors, what do you make of your old pal Axel Schuster and what he's up to in Vancouver at the moment?
I love Axel. And look, he's as disciplined and sophisticated as you get. So, I take great comfort that the Whitecaps are in good hands with him, leading the charge there.
Yeah, we had media availability with him on Tuesday, and he's always fun to chat with. And like you said, I think the Whitecaps are definitely in good hands with him, and can see they're making some nice moves. So Mark, I really enjoyed your article. Is there anything else we should be looking forward to, kind of in the forward, for informative pieces and stuff for the the business sports junkies like myself?
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch in the pipeline, but over the years, I've learned it's better to just produce than talk about what you're going to produce. So we're we've got a bunch going on. I mean, the industry's at a series of inflection points, which is great. I think there's a lot of growth coming, and so I think we're going to be covering that, talking about it, and at the same time, I think there's going to be some metal on metal as some of the organizations internationally or just globally, there are going to be organizations that struggle because the ownership. So not only is the team, not only are teams broadly not generating revenue, but owners of teams tend to have wide-ranging business interests, and a lot of those business interests are struggling as well. So you've seen some ownership groups starting to borrow at double-digit interest rates, particularly at a time of a low cost of capital, and they did it to get their way through 2020. You wonder what's going to happen in 2021. There's probably going to be a flurry collectively. I don't know if there'll be a flurry in any specific sport or any specific league, but collectively you'll see a flurry, I think, of transactions that'll happen as people really have to turn over ownership of their club.
I mean, we're seeing it a bit in the NHL too, with some some ownership groups leveraging their team to get like you said, the low interest loans and stuff. I mean, it's going to be a fascinating year from the business side of things. We're still looking if the CFL up here in Canada is going to be able to get back going.
Hope so. Hope so. I mean, it's a great league.
Yeah.
It's a great heritage. North American sports is always going to be much better off with a robust CFL. It just is, and it's a unique style of ball. It's I mean, we've all kind of grown up on it, even in the States, even though that wasn't like that's not our league, but it was always there, and we would always have kind of our best college players who, for whatever reason, may have been a mismatch for the NFL, could go there and thrive, and sometimes come back, like Warren Moon or Doug Flutie, right? Like guys who went there and had really prolific careers, and then came back and had prolific careers. So it's just good for the North American sports ecosystem for the league to be strong, and I'm really hopeful that it can come back online.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, geez, Mark, I could probably chat with you sports for hours and hours, but I know that you are a super busy guy, so I want to thank you very much for joining me today.
Sure, Joshua. Happy to be here. Look forward to coming on and talking with you again. Like to hear your show for sure, and I wish you best of luck in the upcoming days in the pandemic. And all my friends in Canada, I just say, looking forward to next time we see each other.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you very much for joining me. And you're always welcome on the show to chat some sports and the business side of sports.
Thank you.
All right. So what a fantastic conversation with Mark Panis. And I hope that everyone enjoyed that and got a bit more informed on the business side of sports. So it was also nice to chat a bit of Whitecaps, even though his time was short and only lasted 6 months. I want to thank everyone for joining me here on the Unnamed Sports Show. We will be going back to a weekly show, hopefully at 3 p.m. on Thursdays, if I don't screw things up like I did today with some of my videos. So make sure to check those out every week, and I have lots of great guests for you with all of the amazing sports going on right now. We have Canucks going on, we have NBA going on, Whitecap season starts up soon, lots of other stuff. So, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe down at the bottom, and leave me a comment on what you thought about my conversation with Mark Panis. So I have been your host, Joshua Griffith, here on the Unnamed Sports Show. Remember to love sports,